It starts with a shape, long, low, and impossibly graceful. A silhouette that whispers rather than shouts. You can almost hear the echo of doors closing with that perfect, reassuring thunk, the kind that tells you someone cared about every hinge, every seam, every hidden weld. It was born in an age when machines were crafted to outlast fashion, when engineers drew curves with the confidence of sculptors. Decades later, it still turns heads for reasons that have nothing to do with nostalgia and everything to do with proportion, presence, and purpose. Beneath the chrome and calm, though, lies a quiet defiance, a refusal to age, a declaration that elegance and endurance can share the same heartbeat. This is the story of the car that defined what it meant to build beauty that lasts, and why it still matters today. Like and subscribe if you love timeless engineering, and drop a comment to tell us which icon we should explore next. The Mercedes 280 SE 3.5 Coupé was not just another elegant car from Stuttgart, it was the moment Mercedes-Benz decided that luxury could evolve without losing its soul. To understand how it came to be, you have to step back into the late 1960s, when Germany was rebuilding its reputation for precision and reliability, and the global automotive stage was shifting toward power and style. Mercedes had long been the brand of statesmen and engineers, known for overbuilt sedans and formal convertibles, but the market was changing. America was booming. Style mattered more than ever, and even the most conservative buyers wanted something with presence. The 280 SE 3.5 Coupé arrived as a bridge between tradition and ambition, handcrafted like a bespoke suit, yet quietly daring in its innovation. It began with the W111 chassis, a platform that already carried Mercedes' most sophisticated technology, from crumple zones to refined suspension geometry. But where earlier versions emphasized restraint, the 3.5 injected warmth and muscle beneath that dignified exterior. The engineers knew that simply refining an old formula wouldn't cut it. They needed a new heartbeat. That heartbeat came in the form of a 3.5-liter V8 engine, Mercedes' first modern 8-cylinder power plant after years of inline sixes. It was compact, smooth, and surprisingly advanced, using a Bosch D-Jetronic electronic fuel injection system that delivered seamless response. The result was 200 horsepower in a car that looked like it didn't need to prove anything. And that was the genius. It didn't shout about performance, it whispered it. The designers followed the same philosophy. The 280 SE 3.5 Coupé was penned under Friedrich Geiger, the man responsible for some of Mercedes' most iconic shapes. Every curve was intentional. Every line served balance. The greenhouse was airy, the beltline elegant, and the stance dignified. The chrome was applied like jewelry, never excessive, always harmonious. Inside, the craftsmanship bordered on obsessive. Real wood veneers lined the dash, cut and matched by hand. The leather was thick and fragrant, the switches solid enough to outlast a generation. Every door panel, every vent felt engineered rather than styled. Owners described the experience not as sitting in a car, but as being enveloped in quiet precision. Yet there was more than comfort at play. The 280 SE 3.5 was meant to remind buyers that technology could coexist with timeless design. It carried disc brakes on all four wheels, independent suspension, and optional air conditioning, all cutting-edge luxuries in 1970. The automatic transmission was tuned for grace rather than aggression. But even so, the car could cruise effortlessly past 120 mph with uncanny calm. Mercedes didn't market it as a sports car or a luxury barge. It was something subtler, what the Germans might call Souveränität, composure, control, authority without arrogance. Building it, however, was expensive. Each body was welded and finished largely by hand at the Sindelfingen plant, with craftsmen fitting panels individually. No two were precisely identical. Mercedes priced it accordingly, enough to make even wealthy buyers pause. But those who understood completely. For them, this was not about flash. It was about owning something that embodied the best of what Germany could make when profit wasn't the first concern. In America, it found a quiet but devoted audience. Executives, architects, and film producers gravitated toward its understatement. It wasn't ostentatious like a Cadillac Eldorado, or as brash as an Italian GT. It projected confidence through silence. Owning a 280 SE 3.5 Coupé in the early 70s said you valued quality over trends, and that you planned to keep it for life. Over time, it also became a symbol of an ending era. The oil crisis loomed, emissions laws tightened, and handmade assembly gave way to efficiency. The 280SE 3.5 was one of the last truly coach-built Mercedes coupes, a product of human skill before automation changed everything. Each car took hundreds of hours to complete, an approach that simply couldn't survive the economics of the coming decade. But at that moment, between the analog past and digital future, Mercedes captured lightning in a bottle. Every decision in the 280SE 3.5 Coupé reflected that delicate balance between restraint and ambition. Its V8 made it fast enough to challenge stereotypes. Its lines made it beautiful enough to silence debate. It wasn't designed to dominate headlines, it was designed to outlast them. And in doing so, it created a new template for the modern luxury coupé. Yet its story doesn't end with design perfection. It truly comes alive when you see how the world received it. Because while the car defined elegance, its impact stretched far beyond Mercedes itself. And that's where our journey turns next. The Mercedes 280SE 3.5 Coupé entered the world stage quietly, but its resonance was immediate and profound. In an era defined by muscle cars and flamboyant grand tourers, the 280SE 3.5 presented a different kind of authority, one rooted in engineering honesty rather than excess. Reviewers marveled at how it could glide at Autobahn speeds with little more than a whisper, while the cabin remained a sanctuary of calm. It wasn't just another beautiful European car. It was a statement that precision could be emotional, that discipline could produce desire. Mercedes had created something that transcended fashion. The 280SE 3.5 Coupé became a benchmark, both for the company and for competitors who suddenly realized that power and poise could coexist. Other manufacturers began experimenting with similar formulas: refined V8s, understated design, luxury wrapped in minimalism. But none matched the 3.5's sense of balance. Its restraint became its allure, particularly in the US, where luxury buyers were beginning to tire of ostentation. American roads became its proving ground. On long interstates, the car's stability was unmatched. Drivers reported that the steering felt telepathic, the suspension soaked up imperfections without floating, and the engine, though small by American standards, delivered torque that felt inexhaustible. Even at 80 miles per hour, the tachometer hovered lazily, as if the machine was barely awake. This composure created a new kind of luxury, one that spoke softly but never went unnoticed. Dealerships in Beverly Hills, New York, and Palm Beach soon became familiar with a new clientele, buyers who had outgrown flash and wanted something built to endure. They didn't just want to own a Mercedes. They wanted to own the Mercedes that represented the brand at its purest. The 280SE 3.5 Coupé became that car. Collectors, connoisseurs, and journalists later referred to it as the last of the hand-built Benzes, a term that carried reverence and melancholy in equal measure. Behind the scenes, the economics were shifting. Mercedes executives knew they couldn't keep building cars this way forever. Each 280SE 3.5 took so much labor and attention that it was almost unsustainable. By the mid-1970s, production methods had to modernize. Design had to evolve. The W116 S-Class was already emerging as the future, with sharper edges and more automated processes. The 3.5 Coupé, meanwhile, became a relic almost overnight, a living reminder of how far the company had come and what it was leaving behind. Yet the car refused to fade. In Europe, it became a fixture of diplomatic garages and art collector estates. In America, it turned into a cult object, admired by enthusiasts who recognized craftsmanship in every line. The car's reputation only grew as newer models appeared, bigger, faster, more complex, but somehow less intimate. The 280SE 3.5 had that elusive quality modern luxury sometimes misses: effortlessness. Its power delivery was linear, its handling intuitive, its atmosphere serene. Owners didn't feel like they were operating technology, they felt like they were part of a conversation between machine and maker. Over the years, its cultural weight expanded beyond car circles. It appeared in films set in the 1970s, often as shorthand for taste and success without arrogance. Celebrities and collectors who could afford anything gravitated toward it, not because it was flashy, but because it represented something rarer: permanence. As the world moved toward disposable luxury, the 280SE 3.5 Coupé stood firm. And then came the restoration era. As values of classic Mercedes models rose, the 280SE 3.5 became the crown jewel for purists. Restorers spoke of the challenge of preserving originality. Each trim piece, each wood veneer, demanded reverence. Replacement parts were expensive, but the reward was unmatched authenticity. Concours events from Pebble Beach to Villa d'Este began featuring these coupés as centerpieces of German design philosophy. Judges admired the restraint, the proportion, the engineering purity that time could not dull. It was here that the 280SE 3.5's legacy transcended nostalgia. It wasn't simply a beautiful old car. It was evidence of a lost way of building things. Every bolt, every stitch carried intention. And that truth resonated with a new generation. Young enthusiasts discovering analog beauty in a digital world. The car's appeal crossed age, background, and nationality. It united those who believed that craftsmanship still mattered, and that luxury without excess was the highest form of confidence. As values climbed past six figures for pristine examples, the 280SE 3.5 transformed from an old luxury coupe into a living standard for what Mercedes-Benz once represented. Unwavering quality, mechanical honesty, and enduring grace. But beyond its market value, what truly defines its legacy is the influence it left on design language. Modern Mercedes coupes, from the CL Class to the S-Class Coupé, trace their lineage to this model's balance of performance and elegance. The long hood, the pillarless side profile, the calm presence at rest, all owe something to the 3.5. Even the company's current design philosophy, sensual purity, echoes the coupé's core idea: beauty through simplicity, strength through proportion. And yet no successor has quite captured its soul, perhaps because the world that produced it no longer exists. The 280SE 3.5 Coupé came from a time when engineers had the final say, when durability outweighed cost, and when every decision was made with the expectation that a car should last a lifetime. That ethos is difficult to replicate in a market obsessed with technology cycles and profit margins, but its spirit endures, reminding both makers and buyers that excellence doesn't have to shout. It can simply endure, and in enduring, inspire. As we move forward, the 280SE 3.5 stands as a compass, pointing toward what true luxury used to mean. And in the final act of its story, we'll explore why its influence still defines Mercedes-Benz today, and what that means for those who dream of owning one now. The Mercedes 280SE 3.5 Coupé represents a moment when engineering idealism still ruled the boardroom, a car designed not for quarterly profit, but for permanence. Its place in Mercedes-Benz history is more than symbolic. It's foundational. The 280SE 3.5 Coupé distilled everything the brand stood for at the turn of the 1970s: precision, elegance, restraint, and combined it with something new: power that arrived not as a roar but as a hum of authority. This was the V8 that would guide Mercedes for decades, and this was the design language that would shape every future coupe wearing the three-pointed star. For Mercedes engineers, the project was both a farewell and a beginning. Farewell to an era of handcrafted individuality, beginning of an era where technology had to serve mass production without losing character. Yet the 280SE 3.5 refused to be merely a historical artifact. It aged with the kind of grace that designers dream of but rarely achieve. Each decade that passed seemed to validate its philosophy. The idea that form and function could exist in perfect equilibrium, that craftsmanship could be timeless rather than trendy. Even as the automotive world leaned into computers and composites, the 3.5's presence felt like a counterpoint, proof that humanity and design still had a place. Collectors who drive one today often describe the experience in near spiritual terms. The car feels alive at low speeds, light on its feet despite its mass, with steering that communicates and suspension that cushions without isolating. It's easy to forget it's more than 50 years old. The solidity, the serenity, the sense of trust it inspires are reminders of a standard that modern machines rarely match. The 280SE 3.5 Coupé also plays a critical role in how Mercedes evolved its luxury philosophy. It demonstrated that a luxury car didn't need to rely on flamboyance. It could seduce through quiet confidence. That lesson reshaped the brand's future, influencing vehicles from the S-Class sedans to today's grand touring models. The lineage of comfort, refinement, and effortless power traces directly back to this coupe's DNA. And yet, the car's legacy extends beyond the factory walls. It became a cultural touchstone, admired by designers and architects who saw in its form the same purity they sought in their own work. Its clean surfaces and honest materials expressed a modernism that transcended automotive design. In that sense, the 280SE 3.5 was less a product and more a philosophy on wheels. That philosophy resonates even louder today, when authenticity has become rare and mass production threatens individuality. To enthusiasts, The 280 SE 3.5 is a reminder of why we fall in love with cars in the first place, not for their gadgets, but for the way they make us feel human connection through mechanical art. It also redefines what timelessness truly means. Most cars look dated within a decade. This one, more than half a century later, still looks effortlessly right from any angle. That's not nostalgia, it's design truth. Few machines achieve it. Even fewer sustain it. The 280 SE 3.5 Coupé did both. In the grand timeline of Mercedes-Benz, the car stands at the crossroads of heritage and innovation, the pivot point where classic coach building gave way to the modern age. It taught Mercedes and the rest of the industry that progress without beauty is hollow, and beauty without engineering is fleeting. It proved that when the two align, the result is not just a car, but an icon. The 280 SE 3.5's legacy endures because it transcends its own time. It is not a symbol of what was, but of what could still be, the pursuit of mechanical excellence without compromise. In a world of digital dashboards and electric silence, the quiet rumble of that 3.5-liter V8 remains a heartbeat worth remembering. And as we close this chapter, we'll look at what owning one means today. Its realities, its costs, its rewards, and why, even now, it might be the most complete expression of Mercedes elegance ever made. Owning a Mercedes 280 SE 3.5 Coupé. Today is not simply a matter of collecting a vintage car. It's about preserving one of the final expressions of an era when craftsmanship was personal and permanence was expected. In the US, the number of surviving examples remains small but cherished. Many were originally sold here, often to discerning buyers who maintained them meticulously, and those cars form the backbone of today's collector market. Prices vary dramatically based on condition and provenance. A project car can hover in the low six figures, while a concours quality example can exceed $400,000. But beyond price, ownership is defined by mindset. The 280 SE 3.5 is not a car you buy on impulse, it's a commitment to mechanical stewardship. Parts availability remains surprisingly healthy thanks to Mercedes-Benz Classic, but repairs are never cheap. Each panel, trim piece, or mechanical component is an artifact of a time when tolerances were measured by touch as much as by tool. Restoration requires patience and reverence, and the best restorers treat these cars more like sculptures than machines. For enthusiasts willing to embrace that responsibility, the reward is singular. The 280 SE 3.5 delivers a driving experience that transcends nostalgia. Its V8 doesn't shout. It sings with a deep, effortless rhythm. The power delivery feels organic, the steering perfectly weighted, and the ride quality manages to feel modern despite its age. On the highway, it moves with a calm authority that few cars, old or new, can replicate. Reliability, when the car is properly maintained, is remarkably strong. These engines were overbuilt, the transmissions stout, and the electrics surprisingly straightforward. Neglect, however, is unforgiving. Deferred maintenance can spiral quickly, and authenticity matters. Cut corners on a restoration and the car will tell on you. Collectors prize originality, correct wood grain, proper leather tone, authentic chrome finish. In a world awash with replicas and over-restored showpieces, the most valuable examples are often those that still feel lived in but cared for. For American buyers considering importing one from Europe, it's worth noting that right-hand drive versions and gray market cars can differ slightly in trim and emissions equipment. But the fundamentals remain identical. What you're buying isn't just a classic Mercedes, it's a philosophy made tangible. It represents the pursuit of quality for its own sake, a principle increasingly rare in any industry. That's why the 280 SE 3.5 Coupé continues to command reverence among collectors, designers, and everyday admirers alike. It embodies a truth that transcends automotive boundaries. Real luxury is not about indulgence, but about integrity. And so, its presence today feels both nostalgic and necessary. In an era of screens and silence, the 3.5 reminds us that craftsmanship still matters, that elegance still has power, and that technology without soul will always feel incomplete. Half a century later, it remains a living standard, a mechanical masterpiece that defines not what was once luxurious, but what luxury should always be. The Mercedes 280 SE 3.5 Coupé didn't just define German elegance, it immortalized the idea that perfection, when built to last, never goes out of style.